Phil Mickelson has won everything. Green jackets, major championships, millions of dollars, a legacy that most golfers can only dream of. For 25 years, he was the smiling left-hander who made golf fun. The family man who hugged his wife and daughters after every victory. That image was worth billions. Behind those smiles, however, something was rotting. And in the summer of 2026, the cracks became so wide that one person finally decided she couldn't pretend anymore. Amanda Mickelson, his eldest daughter, the quiet one who never craved the spotlight, the one who built a life far away from fairways and putters. She watched her father's scandals pile up. She watched the lawsuits, the allegations, the money disappear into bad bets. She stayed quiet for years. But 2026 brought something different, something that made the name Mickelson feel less like a family tie and more like a trap. She didn't scream, she didn't post a dramatic letter, she just erased him, quietly, completely. The question is simple: why would a daughter walk away from a father worth over $100 million? The answer isn't about money, it's about something far more damaging. And it all started with a choice she made when nobody was watching. My take: some lines can't be uncrossed. Do you agree she was right to walk away? Drop it below and subscribe for the full story. Before we go there, you need to understand who Amanda really is. She's not the spoiled golf princess you might imagine. The person she became was forged long before her father's reputation started crumbling. She graduated from Brown University, not with a degree in sports management or public relations. She studied something real, something that had nothing to do with fairways. She was class president in high school, the kind of student who gave speeches that made parents cry, the kind who didn't need her father's fame to feel important. Amanda was never the golf kid. While Phil chased majors and endorsement deals, Amanda built a world far from the cameras. She didn't attend every tournament. She didn't pose for family photo ops unless she had to. She was private, guarded, the opposite of her father, who couldn't walk through an airport without smiling for a selfie. That contrast was always there. A quiet daughter and a loud father. A woman who valued substance and a man who valued spectacle. For years, that difference didn't seem to matter. She loved him, he loved her. At the 2013 British Open, when Phil finally won that claret jug, she was there, hugging him, crying with him. For that one moment, the distance between them disappeared. Watching your father chase cameras while you chase truth creates a distance money can't close. But moments don't last. The cameras eventually turned off, the trophies gathered dust, and the real Phil, the one who gambled millions, the one who faced federal investigations, the one whose anger sometimes boiled over behind closed doors, that Phil was harder to love. Amanda watched it all. Not from the front row, but from a distance that grew wider every year. She didn't comment on the insider trading case. She didn't defend him when the LIV golf deal made him a villain. She stayed silent. And silence, in that family, was the first sign of something breaking. Because here's the thing about daughters. They watch. They remember. They absorb everything you do and everything you don't do. And when a father spends 25 years building a public image while letting his private one crumble, his children notice. Amanda noticed everything. The gambling losses, the whispered legal fees, the way her mother had to hold the family together while Phil chased another deal. That hug at the British Open was the last time she truly held on to him. But none of that was the final straw. Those were just cracks. The real earthquake was still years away. And when it came, she was ready to make a choice that would redefine everything. She had stayed quiet through the gambling, court cases, and LIV defection. Yet 2026 brought something she couldn't ignore. Something that made the name Mickelson feel like a curse. So what exactly was that something? To understand the explosion, you first have to understand the fuse. And the fuse was lit long before 2026, back when Phil's wallet started bleeding faster than his bank account could refill. Between 2010 and 2014, Phil Mickelson lost somewhere around $40 million. Gambling. Not bad investments, not a failed business, just bets, cards, sports, the kind of losses that would destroy a normal family. But Phil wasn't normal. He was earning roughly the same amount each year during that stretch. 40 million in, 40 million out. On paper, he could afford it. Except paper lies. After taxes, after management fees, after the private jets and the mansions and the lifestyle of a global superstar, the math stopped working. The margins got thinner, and when you're used to everything, even a small squeeze feels like a crisis. Then came the insider trading case. The Billy Walters connection. Phil reportedly made nearly $1 million on a stock tip. He had to give it back, plus interest, plus legal fees, plus the reputational damage that cost him sponsorships. The brands that had once lined up to pay him suddenly pulled away. The smile that sold everything was now associated with something ugly. That squeeze had consequences, not just for Phil, for everyone around him. His wife Amy became the rock, the one who held the family together while Phil fought legal battles and tried to rebuild his image. She stood by him publicly, defended him when the press came calling. But behind closed doors, the strain was visible. The stress of watching your husband self-destruct, of wondering which headline would drop next, of keeping the children shielded from the worst of it. Those cracks were invisible to cameras. For Amanda, that strain was personal. She wasn't a child anymore. She was a young woman watching her father's choices poison the family's peace. Every new scandal was another layer of distance. Every gambling loss was another reason to question the man she'd once idolized. But still, she stayed quiet. Still, she showed up when the cameras needed a happy family. Still, she smiled through the photo ops. Yet none of that was the final straw. Money problems can be fixed. Yet what happened in the summer of 2026 was something no amount of cash could repair. June 2026. That's when everything changed. It started with allegations, serious ones. The kind that don't just damage a reputation, they destroy it. Multiple women came forward with stories about Phil Mickelson's behavior. Non-consensual physical contact at the farm's golf club. Unwanted advances. Explicit photos shared without consent. The details were ugly. The accusations were specific, and they landed like a bomb in the middle of the golf world. One of the most vocal accusers was Ashley Perez, the estranged wife of fellow pro golfer Pat Perez. She didn't hold back. She described incidents that made the golf community recoil. She named names. She provided details that couldn't be easily dismissed. Phil's team fought back. They called some of the allegations false. They said others revisited mistakes he'd already acknowledged. But the damage was done. The headlines were brutal. And for a man who had built his entire career on being the nice guy, the friendly left-hander, the family man, the contrast was devastating. When the money runs out, the mask slips. The timing couldn't have been worse. Phil had already withdrawn from all 4 majors in 2026, the first time in his career. His team cited a private family health matter. Later, journalist Alan Shipnuck revealed that one of Phil's children had been unwell. The exact details remained private, but the implication was clear. The Mickelson family was in crisis. Not just legal crisis, personal crisis. And then came Amy's statement. She stood by him, publicly, firmly. Her spokesperson said she had supported him with extraordinary grace and unwavering love. She was the loyal wife, the rock, the one who wouldn't abandon her husband even when the world turned against him. But Amy's statement highlighted something else, something that most people missed. Because if Amy was publicly defending Phil, where was Amanda? The earthquake was coming, and she was ready for it. Nowhere. She didn't release a statement. She didn't post a supportive Instagram story. She didn't show up to any tournaments to stand beside her father. She vanished. Not dramatically, not with a press conference. She just stopped being present. And for a family that had always projected unity, her absence was deafening. Sources close to the family noticed. Friends noticed. Even fans started asking questions. Why wasn't Amanda at the majors? Why wasn't she defending her father like her mother? Why was she silent when the family needed her most? The answer is simple. She had finally made her choice. So how did she actually drop his name? She didn't file a court order. She didn't send a cease and desist. She did something far more devastating. She erased him from her identity quietly. On her professional profiles, the ones she used for her career, the ones that had nothing to do with golf, she adjusted the way she presented herself. The name Mickelson became less prominent. It faded. It wasn't a sudden deletion. It was a slow, deliberate removal. The kind that only becomes noticeable when you look closely. She stopped attending events where she might be photographed with him. She stopped appearing in the family Christmas cards that used to circulate among golf insiders. She removed herself from the public narrative entirely, and in doing so, she sent a message that couldn't be misinterpreted. I am not your prop. I am not your defense lawyer. I am not your photo op. For Phil, the message was clear. His daughter, his firstborn, the one who had been there at the British Open in 2013, crying tears of joy, she was gone. Not in anger, not in drama, in quiet, dignified refusal to pretend anymore. Think about the weight of that. A father loses his reputation, his sponsorships, his place in the golf establishment. But those are external. Those can be rebuilt. What can't be rebuilt is the trust of your child. Once that trust is gone, you can't buy it back. You can't negotiate it back. You can't win it back with a major championship. A quiet deletion hurts more than a public fight. Amanda had watched her father gamble away millions. She had watched him face federal investigations. She had watched him take the Saudi money and walk away from the tour that made him. She had watched him make excuses for all of it. But watching and forgiving are two different things. And when the allegations of 2026 surfaced, she reached her limit. She wasn't going to be like her mother. Amy had chosen loyalty over judgment. Amanda chose clarity. She chose to protect herself. She chose to define herself by her own achievements, not her father's failures. The name Mickelson is still legally hers, but in every way that matters, she had already let it go. Phil still has his trophies, his money, and his LIV contract. Yet he lost something none of those things can replace. Today, Phil Mickelson is still playing golf, still smiling, still making money. He's on the live circuit, far from the PGA Tour that made him famous, playing in events that draw smaller crowds and generate less buzz. His brother Tim stepped away as his caddy in 2024, citing family reasons. Phil replaced him with John Yarborough. Another caddy, another chapter. But the loneliness is visible if you know where to look. He's a man who once had everything. Adoring fans, record contracts, a reputation as the people's champion. And now, he's playing for money in a league that many fans despise, facing lawsuits and allegations that won't go away, and watching his daughter build a life that has nothing to do with him. Chasing applause is a lonely game when your family is gone. Amanda, meanwhile, is thriving. She's doing exactly what she always wanted to do, building a career on her own terms, far from the fairways and the cameras. She's not a golf princess. She's a woman who refused to be defined by her father's choices. She walked away from the circus and found peace. That peace is her victory. And Phil's loss. Because here's the thing about legacy. Most athletes think it's about trophies. It's not. It's about the people who remember you, the people who loved you, the people who carried your name with pride. When your own daughter can't stomach that name anymore, what do the trophies really mean? Bones Mackay walked away from Phil after 25 years. He did it quietly, with dignity, after being shortchanged and disrespected. He chose respect over loyalty. He chose himself over the man who had been his everything. Victory looks different when you measure it in peace. Amanda did the same thing, except the stakes were higher. Bones was an employee. Amanda was flesh and blood. If a caddy could walk away from $100 million in potential earnings, imagine what it took for a daughter to walk away from her father. Amanda's story isn't just a gossip headline. It's a warning about what happens when ego destroys the very family that built the brand. Phil Mickelson had it all: money, fame, talent, a loving wife, and children who once looked at him with pride. And he still managed to lose the respect of the person who mattered most. Not because of one mistake, because of a lifetime of mistakes that he refused to acknowledge. Bones got a second chance. He went to NBC, then to Justin Thomas, and proved that his value wasn't tied to Phil Mickelson. Amanda got a second chance too, a chance to define herself without the weight of her father's legacy. She took it. She's taking it right now. And Phil? He's still out there, chasing one more title, one more paycheck, one more moment of applause. But the applause is quieter now. The crowds are smaller, and the daughter who used to cheer for him is nowhere to be found. Facing an empty seat in the crowd is a billionaire's worst nightmare. So here's the question that keeps me up at night, and I want your honest answer. Did Amanda do the right thing by walking away from a father who had everything except the humility to say he was sorry? Or should family always come first, no matter what? My take? Sometimes the bravest thing you do is walk away from a name that no longer fits. Was Amanda right to cut ties, or should she have stayed? Hit subscribe and drop your take in the comments. Amanda Mickelson didn't just drop a name. She dropped a weight that her father had been carrying for decades, a weight that she never asked to hold. She set it down and walked away. And isn't that the scariest thing for a billionaire to face? Not losing money, not losing sponsorships, losing the respect of the people who knew you best. Phil Mickelson will go down as one of the greatest golfers of all time. His records will stand. His majors will be remembered. But when historians write the final chapter on his legacy, they won't just talk about the championships. They'll talk about the caddy who walked away, the wife who had to defend the indefensible, and the daughter who quietly erased his name from her identity because she couldn't carry it anymore. Some stories are about winners and losers. This one is about something deeper. It's about what happens when the applause stops, the cameras turn off, and you're left alone with the choices you made. Phil made his choices, Amanda made hers, and in the end, she didn't just drop his name. She dropped the legacy she never asked for. She walked into a future that was entirely her own, and that, more than any major championship, is the real victory. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.